Okay, since by the time you see this video, it's gonna be well into Friday the 13th or beyond, it's an appropriate video to have debut on Friday the 13th. That is the 10 questions horror tag. Now, I'm gonna link below to Ashley the Movie Oracle's video because this is where I got the idea from, because she said there, even if she didn't tag people necessarily, to just continue the tag, perpetuate the tag some more people in it, get some more answers involved. So that's what I'm gonna do. So thank you for the inspiration, Movie Oracle. I'm going to pass along these questions. And these questions are a hell of a lot harder to answer than the previous round of horror Q&A that I did. There's 10 of them, and they're a little bit more intricate, and I really had to kind of rack my brain for a couple of these answers, but here we go. Number 1, what is your favorite horror movie opening sequence? This is a difficult one, because do I go with one that just promotes so much angst in me or just draws things out? Do I go with one that kind of just goes all out with its freakishness and its horror, like a Nightmare on Elm Street, or even something like The Frighteners? But I decided, out of the whole criteria, the one opening sequence that always kind of sticks out in my mind, just for the complete 180 that the rest of the movie does in relation to the opening sequence, is 1980's Cannibal Holocaust. Because the opening sequence is just a montage of aerial shots of the Amazon, and you have the loving soundtrack done by Riz Orlantini. Like, so peaceful, so tranquil, so soothing, that you can't believe that for the rest of the movie it's gonna be extremely depraved and grimy, and a fair degree of shots that had to bring the filmmakers into court to prove that they were, in fact, fake. No, for the court, did you seriously kill your actors? No, signore. Yeah, the opening titles for Cannibal Holocaust, I don't know why, but when I first saw the movie, I was like, odd choice, certainly, but then when you contrast it with the rest of the film, you know what? You needed a little bit of a nice lighthearted moment before you get into all the grime and muck and spears up certain cavities. Those Italians and their cannibal movies. Number 2 is without doubt the hardest one I had to kind of recall and remember, because you have to name basically your 3 favorite horror movie quotes, and there is so much to choose from, you guys. So I had to narrow it down, unfortunately. I wish I could put 30 on here, but let's go with, first up, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula. I know this is a classic line from the Bela Lugosi movie, even from the original novel. I love when Gary Oldman is just like, the children of the night, what sweet music they make. I mean, I know Bela did that line and everything, but I love Gary Oldman in that role, and I love the sincerity he genuinely puts into being like, yeah, those children of the night, they know what's up. Sweet music and all. Love me, Winona Ryder. Number 2 favorite horror movie quote is from Re-Animator, Mr. Herbert West. Who's gonna believe a talking head get a job in a sideshow? It was a close tie between that and Mr. West, I suggest you get yourself a pen. But then I had to snap pencils and everything like that. And number 3, I'm gonna try to do justice to a chunk of the quote, because it is just this huge kind of bold, dramatic statement being delivered by one of our finest actors, Mr. Ian McKellen. Sir Ian McKellen. Apologies, Sir Ian McKellen. But it's from 1983's The Keep, directed by Michael Mann. I don't blame you if you don't remember The Keep. Not many people do. Dan Bauer and I did, and we did a McChats on it a couple of years back if you want to check out that video and what we thought of it. If you know me and you know that I like The Keep, you probably know which part of Ian McKellen's dialogue I'm going to be quoting here. If you are who you claim you are, then you take it out of here! You yourself, take it! I wish I could do it louder, but neighbors. It's kind of like proto-Gandalf a little bit. It's very much along, you shall not pass type of intensity. And Ian's just going for it as he proclaims defiance against Molasar. That movie, if you can find The Keep, don't get me wrong, it's a production train wreck and an editor's worst nightmare come true, but I don't know, I personally love it. Giant Molasar killing Nazis, Tangerine Dream score, Scott Glenn getting sucked into bright lights, I mean... Sure. And of course, the coup de grace being Ian McKellen going, "Take it!" Number 3, King or Kubrick, whose vision do you prefer of The Shining? I read The Shining many, many years ago for a high school project. I liked it fine, but I grew up with the Kubrick version. I like the Kubrick version more. It just speaks more to my sensibilities. I'm something of a nihilist, so Kubrick being the ultimate downer throughout that entire movie is pretty appropriate for my tastes. Don't get me wrong, I like the book. I like the message the book is intentionally going for, and you can tell it's something that was important to King to talk about this father's redemption arc as he struggles with his demons, some of which originated in a bottle. Glug glug, get it? Coping with addiction. But just the way The Shining is shot. Even when I was a little kid, I appreciated a lot of the way he would do those long just pans and takes following Danny Torrance through the hallways. It wasn't what we considered to be like, terrifying, scary, but it put me at ease even as a youngin'. And the visuals, again, might not be the grossest or most boogity type freaky visuals, but they're just so off-putting and weird that you can't help but be like, oh God, I need to get out of this hotel. Gross old ladies in tubs. Whatever the hell this is. Point goes to the Kubrick Shining. What is my favorite creature horror movie? Well, if we're going for just straight-laced horror, I'd have to say The Thing. I genuinely enjoy the suspense of not knowing who is actually the Thing. There are times where I sometimes will myself to forget who exactly the Thing absorbed at certain points in the movie, so that way I can just feel genuinely surprised again, even though there's so many iconic creature effect shots in that movie. The setting of that just frozen tundra and that station, the claustrophobic feeling you have, and the paranoia that just escalates and builds in each of the characters. It's really well done. One of John Carpenter's finest. Number 5, what movie do I dislike that everyone else seems to like? I still come face to face every once in a while with people and friends who still defend and advocate for Paranormal Activity. I did not like Paranormal Activity when it first dropped into theaters. And yeah, I remember even when it first came out, the first film, a lot of my friends at the time were raving about how just terrifying it was, how it was such a game changer in the horror genre. Here's the whole thing, I can kind of look fondly back on a movie like Blair Witch for being a game changer, but Paranormal Activity, you're following two unlikable leads in their well-off house that just happens to be possessed by a demon that they purposefully piss off because they're douchebags. It's not like Blair Witch where they're just 3 kids lost in the woods and they're not trying to do anything to antagonize supernatural elements. They're just lost and you feel sorry for them in that situation as they slowly lose their minds. Here, it's, what's her name? Katie and her douchebag boyfriend, Mika, who, I want that guy to die just based off of his name. But he's like an insider or he's a stock trader or something, and they're in this house together well off, dicking around on guitar all the time and purposefully setting up cameras because they're like, I want to capture all the weird stuff that happens in our house. Hey, I'm going to call out that thing that just crashed the chandelier. That sounds like a smart move, right, honey? Some people like to say, oh, it's suspenseful. No, it's just long periods of time with absolutely nothing happening. And then all of a sudden, demon face, or loud crash, or someone gets dragged out of bed. That's not necessarily suspense. That's boring your audience into a near coma and then just startling them with something. You want like an actual workshop on proper suspense and horror? Watch The Exorcist 3 for this one memorable sequence in the hospital. I just reflected on this a couple of days ago with Dan and just rewatched The Exorcist 3. It's kind of underappreciated. In any type of horror movie scenario, who would I want to be grouped with in order to ensure my survival? My instinct would tell me to go team up with the final girl, but that would make me kind of the best friend who's been friend zoned most likely, and therefore I am dead instantaneously because she needs to be the final girl for a reason. If there's a priest, I'd say I'd stick by the priest, because chances are the priest is going to get the full brunt of whatever's being hurled supernaturally at the group, and I'd come out of that pretty unscathed. Like, he'll go flying through the window in order to fight off a possession. I'll be the guy watching from the window being like, glad that wasn't me. If there wasn't a priest, I'll take an online course really quick and try to just get ordained that way. But then I'll get the brunt of, I'm overthinking it now. Priest! If giving creative control over to your favorite movie, what would you change? This is a tricky one because my favorite movie is kind of just a suspense-driven thriller and not so much a horror movie. My favorite movie is Zodiac by David Fincher. What would I change about Zodiac? I guess I'd maybe have spent a little bit more time with the other suspects that people thought were the Zodiac other than Arthur Lee Allen. David Fincher's movie definitely narrows the field down to Allen, and there's been a lot of contention in recent years as to the accuracy of Graysmith's information gathering with regards to the identity of the Zodiac. There's a lot of stuff that kind of skews the people who accused Arthur Lee Allen or suspected Arthur Lee Allen of being the Zodiac. And there was a whole cadre of other potential suspects, some of whom actually might have fit the profile for the Zodiac killer a little bit more accurately than Arthur Lee Allen. So I guess if I were able to revisit the movie Zodiac, I would have maybe spent a little bit more time maybe building up some of the evidence and some of the workload and caseload in favor of those other suspects, just to kind of give a fair balance, because it's still unsolved. Even though Lee Allen's kind of at the forefront of everyone's preliminary conclusions for being the primary suspect, they never really settled on anyone. So yeah, I'd say that would be my one creative change to the movie, even though I really genuinely enjoy the movie as just a movie and less as an actual historical document or anything like that, or trying to be as faithfully accurate to the actual real life story as possible. It certainly takes its liberties and certainly truncates and amalgamates characters into one another at times, but I'd say having a broader suspect pool in the movie's narrative than just one or two people would have actually made it a little bit more intriguing for me, probably. What are two favorite artwork covers to two horrible movies? This might seem like a cliche at this point, but I really do kind of enjoy the horrible inaccuracy of Troll 2's original cover. Like, the trolls that aren't even trolls, they're goblins, look nothing like this troll thing on the cover. The little kid looks nothing like the actual little kid in the movie. And yeah, again, the fact that that cover is still trying to sell you on the idea that this is a sequel to something you might have enjoyed, even though it's actually a sequel to nothing. And actually, in that same vein, I'd have to say some really good artwork I really like from a terrible movie is the artwork for Crawlers, aka Troll 3. I mean, that is kind of the classic 80s horror movie aesthetic they're going for in that cover. Scantily clad woman covered in killer vines. And when you actually watch the movie, the killer vines aren't nearly as impressive as what it's promising on the cover. But it's still a pretty decent work of art. What is a movie that I have tried to watch several times, but I've never been able to get through it all in one sitting? And I'm going to have to agree with the movie Oracle on this one. A Serbian film. I did eventually see it all, just in two separate parts, because I had no interest whatsoever in starting from frame one again and having to go through the whole thing. I remember when I first watched a Serbian film and I started the movie, okay, we're going to be going for some of that torture porn Saw, Eli Roth-ish type of stuff. All right. Bring it on. Let's see how uncomfortable this can get. Because I'm really not one to back away from movies. I don't walk out of movies necessarily. I can't remember the last time I ever did walk out or quit on a movie. I have a fairly high tolerance for being able to just sit and bear it. But there's a point in a Serbian film that I'm sure everyone who's ever talked about a Serbian film brings up, that Yep, even though it's fictitious, even though the filmmakers keep saying, oh, it's supposed to be an allegory or a metaphor for this political travesty taking place in our homeland. Yeah, okay, that's fine and all. It's still fucking depraved and repugnant. If you're able to power on through the scene and its horrific implications, I guess you're a trooper. You win. Even though everyone loses. But me, when that scene came up, even though I had kind of heard whisperings about what the scene was, I immediately just shut my laptop. I'm just like, nope, I'm not doing that. There's too much to live for. There's too much to enjoy in life to spend the next 45 minutes feeling miserable because I had to witness that. I mean, I've sat through depressing as shit stuff. I've sat through just annoying and grating movies that didn't know when to let up on being annoying or grating. But that was kind of the last straw for me. And I was like, I'll come back to this another month. And I kind of held to that. Just a month or two later, I'm like, you know what? I might as well just see what the rest of that film's like. I don't have to start at the beginning. I have a fair idea of where that scene started, so I can avoid that whole moment. And while the rest of the movie was a trudge and was just as horrific and disgusting and senseless in its depravity, I got through it eventually. So it is kind of a cheat because I actually did get through the movie, but I had to get through it on two separate occasions and in two distinct halves. Don't watch a Serbian film, guys. Spare yourself that. What movie would I like to have in my collection that I don't already own? I own a movie file for this movie, but I would genuinely like to have either a retroactive Steelcase Blu-ray or DVD re-release of this, or if I can hunt down the original VHS of it, that'd be a boon to my VHS collection. The Loch Ness Horror. It is so bad Z-grade movie that it is lovable. There is a point in this movie where a obviously fake Loch Ness monster has an old guy's head in a vice grip, and the guy is trying his heart out to act like he's in agony and pain as the Loch Ness monster is biting down on his head. But it goes on for like a minute and a half, and it is hilarious. And all the Scottish accents are unbelievably ridiculous and over the top. It's just the land of Scrooge McDucks. And I'm pretty certain that they shot in Canada, so there you go. But yeah, I would love to have a hard copy of Loch Ness Horror. I will sometimes put on the QuickTime movie file I have on a thumb drive somewhere onto my big screen just for a laugh. And it's a really bad, like, film print version of the movie, but I think to see, like, the awful Z-grade quality of this movie in pristine HD, that'd be a treat. So if anyone out there is able to get their hands on the master of Loch Ness Horror, do us all a favor. Give us that HD or 4K restoration that the world has been clamoring for. Happy Friday the 13th, everybody. Stay safe. And again, don't watch a Serbian film. Life's too short to bring yourself down to those depths.